Did you know that in the 1800s, many believed bathing too often could kill you? Doctors warned that hot water could weaken your nerves, and some even said it might drive you mad. In fact, there were entire towns where people went months, even years, without touching a drop of soap. Why did people fear water more than dirt? What did they use instead of soap and shampoo? And how did bathing become one of the most controversial acts of the century? This isn't just about hygiene, this is about fear, class, and a world where being clean could get you shunned, or worse. Watch till the end, because every strange detail will make you rethink how we live today. Imagine being told that taking a bath could ruin your health, that soaking in hot water might open your pores too wide and invite deadly illness inside. Sounds absurd today, right? But in the 1800s, this fear was very real. Back then, many doctors and ordinary folks believed that water was dangerous, not because it was dirty, but because it was too clean. One French physician even claimed that frequent bathing weakened the body's defenses and caused mental instability. In rural America, mothers warned their children not to bathe on cold days, lest the chill seep in through their skin and freeze their lungs. These weren't just old wives' tales, they were mainstream beliefs, echoed by educators and preachers alike. The fear wasn't just about sickness, it was about moral decay. Bathing was seen by some as a luxury, even a vanity. The idea that someone would wash regularly was viewed with suspicion, especially among the working class. Dirt, in a strange way, became a symbol of humility and resilience. Take this example. In 1830s England, a farmer's diary recorded how his family bathed only once a month, unless someone died. He added, "In which case we'd freshen up for the funeral." For many, the scent of lye soap was a rare guest, and baths were reserved for the ill, the injured, or the dead. It's strange to think how something we now associate with health, peace, and comfort was once feared and avoided. But this fear also reveals something deeper. How much of our behavior is shaped not by facts, but by beliefs. And sometimes, those beliefs stick around for generations. So if people weren't bathing regularly, what did they do instead? How did families, rich and poor, actually manage cleanliness? Without the modern bathroom? Let's step inside a 19th century home and find out. Now picture this. It's a cold evening in 1845. There's no bathroom, no plumbing, just a wooden tub pulled near the fireplace. Steam rising slowly as water is warmed, pot by pot, over the hearth. For most families, bathing wasn't a daily habit. It was an event, a planned, labor-heavy ritual that took time, effort, and teamwork. Water had to be carried from a well or pump, heated on the stove, and poured carefully into a tin or wooden basin. And since it took so much work, that water wasn't changed between bathers. So the order of bathing mattered. Typically, father went first, followed by the mother, and then the children, eldest to youngest. That's where the old phrase, "Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater," came from. By the time the baby's turn came, the water was so murky, you really might lose someone in it. In wealthier homes, the process looked different, but not necessarily more convenient. Upper-class families might have had a designated bathing room, with a copper tub and a servant to help fill and empty it. But even they bathed only occasionally, perhaps once a week, or on Sundays before church. Bathing was tied to ritual, not routine. In public life, cleanliness was often hidden behind curtains. Literally, privacy was a luxury. Most people bathed in kitchens or bedrooms. Bath time wasn't relaxing, it was practical, and often awkward. And in cities, where plumbing was slowly developing, things got even trickier. Some tenement buildings shared one water source between dozens of families. You'd haul your water up 6 flights of stairs, or pay a few cents for someone else to do it. Imagine how precious every drop became. But here's the thing. For all its mess and discomfort, bathing was a moment of care. A small act of dignity in a hard world. Even when it was rare, it meant something. The warmth of the water, the scent of clean clothes afterward, it gave people a sense of renewal. However fleeting. So if water was so hard to come by, what about soap? How did people actually get clean, or at least try to? Well, that's where it gets even more surprising. So, with water so precious and baths so rare, what did people actually use to clean themselves? Well, soap, as we know it today, wasn't always part of the story. In many 19th century homes, Soap was made by hand, using animal fat and wood ash. It was thick, gritty, and smelled faintly like burnt bacon. Not exactly the lavender-scented bars we picture today. It wasn't used for the body as much as for laundry or scrubbing floors. Harsh on the skin, it could cause rashes and dryness, especially in winter. For skin and hair, people turned to other methods. Some used cornmeal or dry sand to rub away sweat and oil. In rural areas, herbs like rosemary or mint were boiled and used as rinses. Vinegar was a popular option too, thought to draw out impurities. And in upper-class circles, milk, wine, or even beer was poured into bathwater for its supposed healing effects. Perfume played a huge role. In fact, for many, scent was the stand-in for soap. A splash of cologne, a dab of rosewater behind the ears, or powdered hair scented with lavender was enough to signal someone was clean. Think of it this way: instead of eliminating odor, people simply covered it up. One well-known example is Queen Elizabeth I, who was said to bathe only once a month, but was never seen without a thick cloud of powdered fragrance following her. And Napoleon? He famously wrote letters to Josephine saying, "Don't bathe before I arrive." Why? Because her natural scent, unwashed, was considered intoxicating. And the truth is, these habits weren't just practical, they were cultural. Cleanliness was more about presentation than purification. If you looked polished, smelled sweet, and wore neat clothes, that was enough. The body itself? That could wait. There's a lesson here, I think. We often judge the past by today's standards. But people then were doing the best they could with what they had, and sometimes that meant finding comfort in rituals of scent and softness, even if water was out of reach. But not everyone could afford perfume or milk baths. So where did people go when they really needed to get clean? The answer lies in a place both social and scandalous. Let's take a look inside the world of public bathhouses. When private bathing wasn't an option, and for most, it wasn't, public bathhouses became the answer. In the 19th century, especially in growing cities, bathhouses began to appear as a way to keep communities at least somewhat clean. But they weren't just places for hygiene. They were hubs of social life, and sometimes quiet controversy. In many American cities, especially among immigrant neighborhoods, bathhouses offered affordable access to warm water and basic privacy. For just a few cents, you could soak in a shared pool or rinse off in a tiled stall. They were built by churches, charities, and later, city governments, part of a larger movement toward public health. But not everyone embraced them. Some viewed these places with deep suspicion. The idea of strangers undressing together, even in gender-separated spaces, was seen by some as morally dangerous. Religious leaders worried they would encourage vanity, or worse, temptation. Rumors spread that bathhouses were breeding grounds for immorality, especially in neighborhoods where immigrants bathed differently, or more openly, than local norms allowed. In New York, for example, early bathhouses serving the Jewish and Italian communities were often under scrutiny. Some were shut down, not because they were unsanitary, but because city officials claimed they were encouraging questionable behavior. That behavior often meant simply being poor, foreign, or different. And yet, bathhouses endured. For many, they were places of relief. One elderly woman once recalled how her weekly visit to the public bath as a girl was the highlight of her week, the only time I felt warm and truly clean. She said, she remembered the smell of soap, the shine of the tiles, and how the steam seemed to lift the weight of poverty off her skin. Even if only for a while. There's something powerful in that. A reminder that cleanliness isn't just physical, it's emotional. It's dignity. And for countless people, those shared baths weren't scandalous at all. They were sacred. But change was coming. A shift in thinking. A new wave of science, plumbing, and technology was about to reshape everything we knew about hygiene, and bring bathing right into the heart of the home. Let's explore how we finally moved from fear to daily showers. The world didn't wake up clean one morning, it took time. But by the late 1800s, something began to shift. And it started with science. As doctors and scientists began to understand germ theory, everything changed. Suddenly, cleanliness wasn't just a personal choice, it was public health. People learned that diseases like cholera, typhoid, and tuberculosis weren't caused by bad air or cold water, but by bacteria. And soap, once harsh and optional, became a vital weapon against sickness. With this new knowledge came invention. Indoor plumbing, once a luxury only the rich could afford, began spreading into middle-class homes. Hot water heaters, flush toilets, and ceramic bathtubs became symbols of progress. Advertisements in early 20th century newspapers promised that a modern bathroom would protect your children and impress your guests. Cleanliness had officially become a status symbol. One famous example? In 1910, a soap company launched a campaign calling its product the key to civic virtue. The message was clear: if you loved your country and cared for your family, you'd wash, and you did often. Schools even began teaching children how to bathe properly. Hygiene became patriotic. But beneath all the plumbing and posters was something quieter, and maybe more powerful: comfort. Imagine, for the first time, running a hot bath on a cold night without hauling water from outside. Imagine washing your hair in a real sink instead of over a bucket. For families who had known only struggle, these changes felt like peace. It's easy to forget now, when we step into steamy showers with scented soaps and fluffy towels, but for most of history, bathing was an effort, not a luxury. What we see as routine, they saw as revolution. And perhaps the greatest lesson is this: being clean isn't just about water or soap, it's about the right to feel good in your own skin. And that right, like so many others, had to be earned, fought for, and slowly brought home. So now that we've uncovered the journey through fear, ritual, scandal, and science, what does it all really mean? Let's take a moment to reflect. So what can we take away from all this? That bathing, something so simple today, was once shaped by fear, class, tradition, and eventually, science. We saw how people went months without washing, how soap was once avoided, how perfumes hid more than they revealed. We stepped inside cramped homes, shared tubs, public bathhouses filled with steam and stories. And we witnessed the shift, how a better understanding of germs and dignity transformed bathing from a dangerous act into a daily comfort. It's a reminder that the routines we often take for granted are built on centuries of change, struggle, and discovery. The next time you turn on your hot shower without a second thought, remember, that moment was once a luxury, a dream, and now it's your turn to share. What surprised you most about how people bathed in the past? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. If you enjoyed this glimpse into history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next episode. Trust me, the past only gets stranger from here.